People that rent out their personal property as a service: Lyft, Uber, Airbnb, etc. What is your customer horror story? Story 1. I used to drive for Uber. Lyft had some bad ones, usually the very drunk, but for the most part, everything was great and went very smoothly. My horror story came from a ride I gave off the books, as it were. Pulled up to the pickup location. Girl comes out, the one who ordered the ride, and explains she ordered it for her friend. The card connected to the account has no money on it, but she offers me $20 for the ride in cash. Whatever, I needed the money, and the spot she said her friend needed to go was relatively close. Would have been well under $20 if it was charged through the app. I agree, and she signals to this very tall guy who walks down from the porch. Red flags were already going off. This guy gets in the back and we take off. I consider myself a pretty social and outgoing person, and soon into the ride this guy and I are talking about all sorts of things, from basketball to movies, as well as our disdain for traffic in the large city we live in. 5 minutes or so of this and he brings up his love for firearms. Next red flag, asks if I own any. I don't, and inform him as such. He then proceeds to pull out 2 handguns from his backpack, explaining how he just picked them up the other day and loves them, even flashes them to me in the rear view mirror. I'm fully freaking out internally, but I keep my cool as we're nearing the destination. As we pull up to this guy's house, he explains that he is a drug dealer and that he really enjoyed our conversation and thinks I'd make a great driver for him as he makes his drops. I explain that I'm not interested, but thanked him for the compliment. Unfortunately, he was fairly insistent I start working for him and would not exit the car till I gave him my phone number. He somehow bought the fake number I gave him and told me he'd call me soon. As soon as he was out of my car, I took off. That was one of the last nights I drove for Uber, Lyft. If the number I randomly gave out actually belongs to anyone, I apologize if you got a late night call from Tim. Story 2. During grad school, I rented my car out for maybe 6 months on relay rides, now called Turo. It went great for a long time. $40 a day buys people a small Nissan sedan. I live in Chicago and people would use it to drive home to Ohio or Michigan or Wisconsin. I work and live downtown and use CTA to get from A to B, and it's no problem. One girl is even a repeat customer. She's a makeup artist and uses it to get to wedding gigs in the burbs. Then I lend it out to a hot young chick for 3 days. 3rd day she asks for an extension with some BS excuse. Whatever, I'll take the money. Next day she returns it and go to get the keys, and she shows me the back bumper. It's bowled inward on the driver's side. I'm not really sure how you make that happen unless someone hits you going very slowly or you back in an odd direction into a hydrant and tries to sob story me. I take the keys and lodge a complaint. Use Turo's app to get it fixed. As I drive, I notice the smell of weed in my car and eventually find an unfamiliar lighter under my seat that says "Flick my Bic." All the while I'm getting sob stories from this girl because it's the holidays and she won't be able to pay the bills if I finalize the complaint, because Turo is going to charge her like $500 of the $800 they are going to pay for my new bumper. You hotboxed my car and wrecked the bumper. Life has consequences. I should have charged you more. Edit. Highest post for me. Maybe for the girl who rented my car too, but in a different way. Story 3. I drive for Uber. I got a pickup for one of the satellite buildings of a local hospital. No big, I've picked up and dropped off people there before and I had never had an issue. As it turns out, the department I was picking up from was the rehab clinic for the area. As you may or may not know, there's a 5-minute wait time from the moment we arrive. App determines it, not us, to the moment when the driver can simply cancel and collect the cancellation fee. For obvious reasons, we tend to keep a sharp eye on the clock. The time was getting close to the 5-minute mark when I got a text. A nurse or doctor on the inside was using Uber to transfer a patient. Okay, still no big, I guess. About 10 seconds later, some bedraggled guy comes out a bit unsteadily and asks if I'm here for doctor. I said yes, and he said that he was the transfer. He got in, and I started the trip to discover that the trip was for 70 miles away to another rehab clinic. Now, long trips are my jam. I get paid well for them. They're easier and less stressful than a bunch of little trips, so I was pleased. Not 2 minutes into the trip, he was like, "Hey man, I don't really want to go there, take me over there." Instead, he wasn't asking, he was telling. Already, I'm uncomfortable and decide it's easier to just do what this guy wants rather than stick to the requested destination. He can't pick out exactly which way he wants me to go, so just starts telling me to turn onto random streets. Some point during this adventure, he asks me how much cash I had on me. Red flags all around now. I tell him I Don't really carry cash. He sighs, says I was really hoping for at least $15 and pulls out a small knife. Frick. So now I'm panicking and pulling out my wallet at the next red light. I had $5 from someone who tipped me earlier that day, but nothing else. He took the bill and told me to keep going. Christ, I'm shaking a little just telling the story. We arrive at what I assume is a drug house. Guy tells me to wait for him and gets out of the car. I can only assume that he was desperate for his next hit or whatever and so didn't really think that through. I shut and locked the door and took off. As soon as he was across the street, went home, reported it to Uber. I didn't file a police report because it was only $5 and Uber said they'd take care of it. I don't really believe it, but I didn't really want to deal with anything else that day anyway. Story 4. Some little crap shot BBs through one of our bathroom doors. We know which family did it too, but they denied it and we have no proof. Those parents knew damn well their kid did it too. I'll never understand why they couldn't act like adults and own up to it. Edit. To answer the most common questions, this happened years ago. We did not inspect the place after each time guests stayed at our vacation home because it's 4 hours away from where we live. Our property manager was supposed to do that, but they were pretty terrible at their job. When they managed our property, guests stole all sorts of things and never were charged for it. Pillows, ornaments, blankets, etc. would regularly be stolen. The property manager or insurance always paid for the missing or damaged items, but it was the principle that people were getting away scot-free that bothered me. We have since switched to a different property manager that is a lot better. Another one that bothered me was when someone put all of their cigarette butts in my charcoal grill. Like seriously, I don't have a problem with smokers, but clean up your fricking butts at least. Story 5. My 1049 has rental properties. We have a lot of bad tenants and a lot of good ones. The tenants that stand out though were a young teenage couple that got pregnant in HS. Family disowned them and they had dropped out of school, working min-wage jobs with a baby on the way. My 1049 rented to them because she was a new landlady, didn't know the risks and felt pity for them. Plus their grandma was their guarantor, so the usual, never paid bills on time. We always had to bug the grandma for unpaid rent. They only paid bills when the hydro company threatened to cut off their water and electricity. Then they had another baby while still not getting their crap together. But the thing that really got me mad was when they didn't pay their rent for 3 months, eviction in progress. And out of nowhere the grandma leaves a voicemail stating the rats have gotten into the stove. Again, they made a nest and ate their way into the fridge. The living conditions are unacceptable for children to live in and we have no choice to report to the landlord and tenant board, police, etc. etc. First off, we didn't know why she said again when this was the first time we've ever heard of a rat problem. Then they tried to blame us for being negligent landlords for not fixing a problem that we were not made aware of. However, my biggest issue with the whole thing was regarding the well-being of those 2 children. How could these idiot parents with a grandma that fricking enables their crap behavior be allowed to parent? I wanted to report them to CPS so bad. I can only imagine how long they were eating rat-contaminated food. They can't fricking afford $600 divided by Mo rent for a semi-detached. It's cheaper than government-subsidized housing in that area. My 1049 really fricked that one up. Took 6 months to kick them out, plus had to buy a new fridge and stove. TLDR, rented a semi-detached to teenage parents with their grandma as a guarantor. Grandma leaves a voicemail putting blame on us for a rat infestation that lived in the stove and chewed their way into the fridge. We didn't know rats got into the house as they had stopped contacting us for months. Used voicemail as evidence in court. Got them evicted after half a year. Hey guys, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to help out the channel. But first, a word from our sponsor, Light Gallery. It's a game changer when it comes to illuminating your living space. If you're looking to add a touch of creativity to your home, this is the perfect solution. They offer a varied collection of high-quality illuminating objects. The last couple of days I had the chance to try out their realistic moon lamp. I have to say that my room caught a new feeling. And not only this, but this lamp is shown to improve focus, which was really important for creating awesome stories for you. Light Gallery offered 15% off if you use the code CARL7. But hurry, it's only for the next 72 hours. Thank you so much, Light Gallery, for sponsoring this video. And let's get back to the stories. Story 6. Had an Arab guest who had a manic episode while staying with our family in our house. She cleaned the basement laundry room one night while we were in bed. It really was clean, but it got to the point that it was really uncomfortable that even though laundry room was kind of dirty, it was not part of her rental space and she was basically really invading our space. The next morning she yelled at our 2-year-old for making noise and then yelled at the neighbor kids over the fence that she was going to call the cops if they kept screaming. She had also been getting into our liquor in the kitchen without asking, probably further contributing to her bizarre behavior. She started really getting manic and saying things like, "How can I relax in this house when it is dirty like this? Our house is not spotless, but we have had dozens of guests, and it is not intolerably messy." We decided that we needed to ask her to leave because her behavior became so erratic that we were afraid that she would set the house on fire accidentally or something. Airb was like almost no help in the situation, and finally they did agree to find her a place after many calls. It did not help that, even though she agreed that perhaps we were not a good fit for her and she would maybe be more comfortable elsewhere, she would not take their calls because she was trying to stay. When she finally left at midnight, the poor Uber guy had to wait like 15 minutes while she loaded her abnormally large amount of stuff she had with her. Turns out that she was from the same city and her boyfriend of 10 years had thrown her out of her apartment and she was basically on the fringe of being homeless. Airb only counted it as a regular dispute and we refunded half her stay cost even though she was a day longer. I get that it was a contractual thing, but under the circumstances I would have been a little more impressed had they eaten the cost on that one, since it was totally beyond our control. When we went through the box of garbage she hauled outside, there were things in there like the kids' shoes and our house phone. I have since become much more careful about who we rent the room to. Story 7. This isn't all that bad, but my horror story is the St. Patrick's Day glitter bomb be well rideshare. Driving. The girl got into the back seat. I don't know if someone dumped a whole packet on her before she got in the car, but she was covered in green glitter. It wasn't obviously falling off of her, so at first it looked like a regular, if heavy, application. But then she got out and left a button back glitter stamp on my back seat. I pulled over and did my best to brush it out. Well, glitter being what it is, despite repeated interior vacuuming, I was finding green glitter right up until the car got repossessed. It even migrated from the backseat to the trunk and front seats. I would shower after a day of driving and see bits of green glitter wash into the drain. It was on my pillows, on my clothes, in the lint coming out of the dryer for months afterwards.